Good morning. This is Tracy from For the Girls International with a little Monday encouragement for you. I was reading this past weekend 1 Corinthians 13, which is commonly known as the love chapter. A lot of times it is recited at weddings and referred to for marriage, which is very appropriate. It's a great way to kind of use as a roadmap for the way that we love each other in marriage. But really, Paul was writing this chapter to Christians, just for general Christian living, and saying how love is supposed to be paramount to everything. Love is what we're supposed to be, how our interactions with people at work are, and our neighbors and our friends and our family. Love is supposed to be the guide. And so we all think the Beatles coined the phrase, love is all you need, but Paul actually said it a long, long time ago. But there, when this chapter lays out what love is, and then it has a couple things that love is not, and the few things that it was saying love is not were the things that kind of just made me squirm in my seat a little bit. And it made me think about one particular thing that I need to be aware of and conscious of all the time, because if I'm not paying attention to this particular concept, it can take me down a road that takes me off moving forward and just sets me back and starts me swirling downward. I'm sure it probably does the same for you, so I wanted to just encourage you how we can kind of remember this particular point. So let me read a little bit to you. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. That's the one. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. And then if you jump down, it says 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. So if the greatest of these is love, then we have to be trying to walk it out the way that it's outlined here, right? So the part that jumped out at me and made me just squirm a little bit is it keeps no record of being wronged. And that's a tough one sometimes. I know that a couple of years back I had received an email from someone that I didn't really know very well. And it was to me, I'm sure they didn't maybe intend it to be this way, but it was harsh. It was something that was critical, and it was judgment and a misjudgment of I think, of my motives and my heart. And I feel like they didn't really see me for who I was, but was making a judgment about me. That anyway, it obviously hurt me. It was something that just brought up insecurities in me. It just hurt my feelings. And for a while, before I could get my head around this concept that love holds no record of wrong, every time I would have an interaction or see, even on Facebook, that name, it would just trigger something in me that would just kind of help make me spiral downwards in a recollection of things that were painful and hurtful, and then my mind would just kind of feed into negativity. And I realized at one point that I was keeping a record of that wrong, whether that person was genuinely wrong or not. I felt wronged, and I was keeping that record of being wronged, and it was taking up space. And so you think of your file cabinets that you have, and how, there's all these papers that you have to keep for 3 years or 5 years or whatever. I always love when you come to the end of that time where you have to hold on to something and I can just trash those things, because now I can have all this room in my file cabinet for all the things that I'm creating and working on, all of the things that are going to be bring new production, instead of just holding on to things that were from the past that I just need to keep. Well, the great thing about what this is saying is that love keeps no record of wrong. We don't have to keep the records of all these things that people have said or done or whatever, because when we do that, it just takes up space. It doesn't leave you room for all the good stuff. And so I have even had to, at times, when I had something that kept on taking up way too much mental space for me, because I guess I was keeping a record of that wrong, I've even had to write things down on paper and physically tear them up Or I remember one time when I was in Maine, something was just gnawing at me, something that it was an offense that I just couldn't get over. And I actually wrote it out on a piece of paper and I put it in the bonfire and I said, from this day forward, I'm not keeping a record of that. So sometimes you need to do something physically to actually draw the line in the sand and say, no more from this day on. Now listen, we're humans, so we're going to recall things. Things are going to trigger us every once in a while, but if we keep this in our minds, that we keep no records of wrong, the grace that was extended to us, we extend to other people, we see past their fault and through to the need, then we don't become prisoners of those things. We don't become, our mind, our hearts don't become cluttered with those things. We can forgive. And that's the biggie, and that's the hard one. That's the hard one when somebody doesn't even maybe want to be forgiven or ask to be forgiven or even know that they need to be forgiven in some cases. It's really not about them as much as it is about you. You need to let go of that and forgive. And I know some things are harder than others. And of course, please hear me when we're talking about serious things like abuse and those things. Obviously, things need to be put in place for your safety, but in your heart, if you can let go of those records of wrongs, you're going to find freedom, and it's going to help you to move on. And that's always what my intention is for these encouragements for you. So I am doing some file cabinet clearing of my own, and just trying to loosen up some capacity for all the good stuff, and that's what I want for you too. So I hope you have a good week. I just want to remind you that For the Girls International, if you live in the Tampa Bay area and you're a woman, we have a lot of events. If you go to our Facebook page at For the Girls International Incorporated, you can subscribe to our events, and then you can have a little notification come when we're having something in the area. So we would love to see you at an event, and I hope you guys have a great week.